Welcome to Touching is Good. I'm Daniel, and this is TrackMania. The DS wasn't really known as a system for good racing games. Outside of Mario Kart DS and a port of Diddy Kong Racing, I don't think most people would be able to name many games in the genre that came to it. That said, the system had a fairly sizable library of racing games, with a few hidden gems in there. Two of my favourite racing games on the system are TrackMania DS and TrackMania Turbo. TrackMania, for those who don't know, was a long-running PC racing series dating back to the early 2000s. The focus of the games is not about racing other drivers, but setting the best time for your race around a series of tracks. Any other cars on the tracks are just ghosts, and if you beat them, you get a medal. So it's basically like the time trial mode in Mario Kart, with you racing against the staff ghost. Another huge feature of the TrackMania game since the very beginning is the focus on user-generated tracks. All the games have come with a fairly in-depth track creation software, which for the PC versions can be shared and traded online. Since the release of the original in 2003, there have been many titles for the series on PC. However, it wasn't until 2008 that the series would finally make its console debut with TrackMania DS. Both the DS games were developed by one of the more prolific developers of racing games on the DS, Scottish game studio Firebrand Games, who released about a dozen racing games on the system. TrackMania DS was released in November 2008 in Europe, with other regions receiving it later, and TrackMania Turbo came out in September 2010, again, first in Europe. Other than track environments and a few minor differences, the games more or less play the same. TrackMania DS has 3 types of environments for you to race around, and Turbo has 4. In DS, the environments are Stadium, Desert, and Rally. In Turbo, you have the returning Stadium with new environments Island, Snow, and Coastal. Each of the environments plays different and has its own unique style and feel. In some, the car will be faster, have tighter turning, or just different track styles. The tracks themselves range from pretty normal racing game tracks to huge stadiums with loops and boost pads, almost nearing an F-Zero style. So even in just one environment, you'll see a large variety of tracks to race around, and it helps to keep things fresh. Each of the games has 3 main modes: race, platform and puzzle, as well as a track creation tool. Race will pit you against 3 ghosts, and much like any racing game, the goal here is just to get to the finish line as quick as possible. The tracks themselves are usually pretty short, most are around the 30-second mark, however there are some that can get up to 90 seconds that will need you to do multiple laps, or just be a longer track in general. Beating the time set by the ghost will earn you a medal, and these medals can be used to purchase new tracks, skins for your car, and blocks to be used to be making your own tracks. Racing is simple: A to accelerate, B to brake, D-pad to steer. There's no button for power slides or anything else, it's all kept relatively simple. And this simplicity is kind of misleading. On the surface it all seems easy, and some of the tracks you'll be able to finish in the first go, but most of the time you need a fair bit of trial and error to learn the tracks and how to best navigate them to get the required time. It's a great feeling of accomplishment once you finally figure out a particularly hard track and manage to beat the time set by the ghost racers. Pressing Y gives you a quick reset, which will take you all the way back to the beginning of the race, which is great if you make a quick mistake and want to restart right away. Now, you might not think this is an important feature, however, just due to the shortness of the tracks, if you even make a slight mistake, you'll pretty much always be out of the running to get the time you're after. So having this allows you to instantly restart the race, and it's awesome. It gives the game that awesome just one more try type quality that you see in stuff like Super Meat Boy or puzzle games. The X button is used to restart from the last checkpoint you went through. Now, this doesn't reset the clock, so it's still running. As a result, it's not overly useful in race mode. However, it does get a fair workout in platform mode. Speaking of platform mode, this sees you driving your car around a huge course. However, instead of racing other cars, the goal is to simply make it to the end of the track. The trick with this is, though, that the tracks require you to either drive very carefully and not fall off, or make jumps to get over huge gaps in the track. If you fall off the edge of a track, or you fail to make a jump, just press the X button and return to the last checkpoint. However, you get rewarded with extra medals for making it to the end with as few checkpoint restarts as possible. Much like race mode, there is a huge deal of trial and error in learning these courses. A lot of them will require you to make bizarre jumps, or just stuff that you're not really going to know what's coming next. The final game mode is Puzzle. However, before you can play that, you must first go through the track editor and design a few courses of your own. Now, the editor is surprisingly robust for a handheld game. It gives you access to all the environments as well as all the track pieces from the game to make your own. Now, you start out with a fairly standard selection of blocks to make your own tracks with. Additional pieces can be purchased through the in-game shop using medals you've unlocked in the game. Pretty much any track you can think of you can make. Want a track with tight corners and lots of speed boosts? Go for it. Or one with lots of jumps and maybe a huge loop? You can. The touchscreen gives you control over placing the blocks down, and the D-pad can be used for scrolling. It's pretty easy to use and doesn't take too long to learn. Once you're happy with a track you've made and have set up a start and an end point, you need to test the track to make sure you can be playable before you can save it. You can test any tracks you make on the fly. Simply pressing the flag icon in the top right corner will straight away take you down to the start point, and off you go. No loading times at all. After you've finished your track and saved it, you can share it with others via local wireless connection. Now, TrackMania Turbo did have access to the Wi-Fi connection, and you could trade games online with it. However, as with everything else Wi-Fi connected, that's long gone. Still, you can make your own great tracks for yourself to race around on. Once you've made your first track in the editor, the game will unlock puzzle mode. This mode gives you a track with a starting point, an end point, some checkpoints, and a limited set of blocks that you need to use to finish the track. You build what you think is going to be the best way around the track with the blocks available, and then try and beat the set time. Like the other two modes, there's a good selection of tracks to solve, with each just getting more and more difficult. Just as a single player game, there is a ton of content in both the TrackMania games and the DS, enough to keep you going for hours. All of the game modes have that awesome just one more try feel to them. Every time I make a mistake, I always feel like I know what I did wrong and I can do better next time, and this will keep me playing for ages. Most of the tracks will, as I've said before, will require a lot of trial and error just to figure out how to get the best times. Learning the turns and when to brake and how to quickly do a jump. Each second quicker feels like a huge accomplishment. Multiplayer content wise, the games are packed. Both offer single and multi-card multiplayer, and offer several modes to play through, from just the simple one-off time trial tracks to playing through a whole championship mode. Anyone you race against will be much like the CPU races and just ghosts, so you won't have to worry about crashing into anyone. There is also a hot seat multiplayer mode which can be played on just one DS, and you pass the DS between each other just trying to beat the high score set. Now, Turbo did feature online play via the Wi-Fi connection, allowing you to race against friends, random people, online, and compete against people who are ranked the same as yourself. I never got a chance to check this out, but I imagine if the game had had a strong community for it, it would have been quite amazing. Now, in both games, the racing looks smooth, there are no frame rate issues, and everything looks as it should. I'd say TrackMania DS looks a lot cleaner than Turbo. The tracks in Turbo seem to be a little bit busier, and it can be hard to make out what's coming up sometimes. Another big strike I have against Turbo is the music, as it's just not as good as the first game. It feels more repetitive and intrusive than in DS. I think part of this is due to the fact that TrackMania Turbo has more content than the original, and to save space on the DS cart, the audio had to take a bit of a hit. Which is a shame, as the music in the first game is kind of a highlight. It's really good backing music to the game and totally in line with the style of the main games have on PC. Another down point for Turbo in the audio department is the rival engines of the Ghost races. Sounds a lot louder and can drown out the music. However, given the quality of the music, this could be a good or a bad point. I did find myself playing Turbo with the sound off a lot more than I did the first game. The game physics can be a bit iffy and frustrating at times. Sometimes you'll hit a corner and go flying off in an odd direction, or you'll land oddly from a jump and lose most of your speed, whereas the computer doesn't seem to lose any, and it can be a bit weird to figure it out. Over time though, you'll get used to this, and it's not so much a huge issue. I did notice on a few occurrences though my car just randomly falling through the track with no explanation. So yeah, there are issues, it's not perfect. But in closing, these are two of the best racing games on the DS. I can't think of any racing games more perfectly suited for playing a handheld system. As I said, they have that awesome one more go, quick fire style gameplay that shows up more in puzzle games and just works perfectly on a handheld system. The games look really simple from the outside, but once you start playing, you'll find mastering the tracks can take forever. One small mistake and you ruin your time and need to restart. I mean, I really love these games. These are probably the racing games on the DS I still go back to, and even, I don't go back to Mario Kart or anything else, but these I can always just pick up and just get right back into them. I can't gush enough about how much I love these games. If you are interested in the TrackMania games on DS, I say pick up the first one. I feel it's a better game and just a bit more of a complete package. However, Turbo is very good as well. There's just a few small issues that hold it back from being as good as the first. That said, they are both awesome games and hands down some of the best racing games you can play on the Nintendo DS. So that's it for episode 4 of Touching is Good. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out www.vooks.net for all the latest Australian Nintendo news and reviews. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'll be back in another few weeks with another episode of Touching is Good. Hopefully not as delayed as this one. But until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye.